In the dim glow of a rainy evening, Alex Thompson stood frozen at his front door, his hand still gripping the knob as if it were a lifeline. The relentless downpour drummed against the roof like 1,000 unspoken regrets, and there she was, his stern, unyielding boss, Victoria Hale, drenched and trembling on his doorstep, her usual armor of tailored suits replaced by a simple coat that clung to her like sorrow. Her eyes, usually sharp and commanding in the boardroom, now brimmed with a vulnerability that hit him like a thunderclap, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked the question that would unravel everything, "Am I beautiful?" It was a moment that shattered the walls between their worlds, pulling him into a storm of emotions he thought he'd buried deep. If this story of unexpected kindness and second chances resonates with you, hit that like button, drop a comment below sharing where you're watching from. Share this with someone who needs a reminder of humanity's warmth, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales that touch the soul, because everyone deserves a chance to be seen truly. Alex had always been the quiet pillar in the chaos of corporate life, a single dad navigating the treacherous waters of grief and responsibility after losing his wife, Emily, to a sudden illness 3 years prior. Their daughter, Lily, was just 5 when it happened, her innocent laughter turning into silent questions that pierced Alex's heart every night. He worked as a mid-level accountant at Hale Enterprises, a sprawling tech firm where efficiency was God and emotions were liabilities. Victoria Hale, the CEO, was a force of nature, ruthless in negotiations, demanding in deadlines, her reputation preceding her like a shadow. Whispers in the office painted her as unbreakable, a woman who had clawed her way to the top after a childhood marked by abandonment and hardship. But Alex saw glimpses of something more in her fleeting glances during meetings, a loneliness that mirrored his own, though he never dared acknowledge it. His days blurred into a routine of spreadsheets by day and bedtime stories by night, where Lily's tiny hand in his was the only anchor keeping him from drifting into despair. The financial strain was relentless. Emily's medical bills had drained their savings, and Alex often skipped meals to ensure Lily had new shoes or books for school. He pushed through exhaustion, his smiles forced for his daughter, but inside, the weight of solitude crushed him, making every promotion denial from Victoria feel like another nail in his coffin of dreams. One particularly grueling week at work, tensions had boiled over. Victoria had called an emergency meeting, her voice slicing through the room as she critiqued Alex's latest report, pointing out errors born from his sleepless nights caring for Lily during her bout with the flu. "This is unacceptable, Thompson," she had said, her tone laced with frustration that masked her own pressures, the board breathing down her neck for quarterly results, the isolation of leadership where friends were scarce and trust even scarcer. Alex had bitten back his retort, nodding silently, but the sting lingered as he drove home that night, rain lashing his windshield like accusations. Little did he know, Victoria's world was crumbling too. Behind her facade, she battled scars from a recent car accident that had left her face marked with faint lines, a reminder of the night she had swerved to avoid a deer, only to collide with fate. The physical pain had healed, but the emotional toll was profound. Mirrors became enemies, reflecting a woman she no longer recognized, one whose beauty she doubted in the quiet hours. Rumors of her perfectionism stemmed from deeper insecurities, planted in a youth where her mother's harsh words echoed, "Beauty is power, and without it, you're nothing." That evening, overwhelmed by a board meeting where her appearance had been subtly mocked in whispers, Victoria had driven aimlessly, ending up at Alex's modest suburban home, the address pulled from employee files in a moment of desperate impulse. She needed to see someone real, someone who didn't bow to her title, and Alex, with his quiet integrity, had unknowingly become that beacon. As Alex opened the door wider, inviting her in from the storm, the air thickened with unspoken stories. Victoria stepped inside, water pooling at her feet on the worn wooden floor, her coat dripping like tears she refused to shed. The house was a sanctuary of warmth amidst the chill, toys scattered in the living room, Lily's drawings pinned to the fridge, a pot of soup simmering on the stove from Alex's attempt at a comforting dinner. He offered her a towel and a seat on the couch, his movements deliberate, masking his confusion. Why was she here? The boss who had never shown a crack in her armor now sat hunched, her hands clasped tightly as if holding herself together. Alex busied himself with tea, the steam rising like forgotten dreams, and as he handed her the mug, their fingers brushed, sending a jolt through both. It was then, in the soft light of the lamp, that she looked up, her eyes searching his, and whispered those words again, softer this time, laced with the fear of rejection. Am I beautiful? The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her hidden battles, the accident that had stolen her confidence, the endless nights questioning her worth beyond the boardroom, the isolation of a life built on achievements rather than connections. Alex paused, his heart aching for this woman he barely knew, seeing in her the same raw pain he carried for Emily's loss. He didn't rush. Instead, he sat beside her, the couch creaking under the shared burden. In that moment, Alex's mind raced back to his own struggles, the nights when Lily's cries echoed Emily's absence, when he'd stare at his reflection wondering if he was enough as a father, as a man. The challenges had been relentless. Balancing Lily's school events with overtime shifts, fending off well-meaning but intrusive questions from neighbors about dating again, the gnawing guilt of not being present enough. There were days when bills piled up like accusations, and he'd skip social gatherings to avoid pitying stares, his world shrinking to just him and Lily. But through it all, he'd learned that beauty wasn't skin-deep, it was in the resilience of the human spirit, the quiet acts of love that mended broken pieces. Victoria's presence forced him to confront his own isolation, mirroring his pain in her vulnerability. As the rain softened outside, Alex finally spoke, his voice steady but laced with emotion. He told her she was beautiful, not in the superficial way society demanded, but in the strength she wielded every day, the way she inspired her team despite her hidden doubts, the flicker of kindness he'd seen when she'd approved his leave for Lily's illness without question. His words flowed like a balm, describing how her scars told a story of survival, how her eyes held a depth that no accident could erase. It wasn't flattery, it was truth, born from his own journey through loss, and as he spoke, Victoria's shoulders relaxed for the first time in years, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. The conversation stretched into the night, the tea growing cold as layers peeled away. Victoria shared fragments of her past. The absent father, the mother who valued appearance over affection, the accident that had not only marred her skin but shattered her self-image. She confessed the pressure of her role, how every decision felt like a tightrope walk over an abyss of failure, how loneliness had become her constant companion. Alex listened, his own stories spilling out in response. Emily's laughter that still echoed in dreams, Lily's innocent questions about heaven, the fear that he'd never feel whole again. For the first time, he admitted the toll it took, the moments when he'd nearly broken under the weight, like the day Lily asked why Mommy left, and he had no answers but hugs. Their shared vulnerabilities wove a fragile bond, turning the living room into a confessional where judgments dissolved. Lily stirred from her room, peeking out with sleepy eyes, and in that innocent interruption, something shifted. Victoria's face lit up as she interacted with the child, her usual reserve melting into genuine warmth, and Alex saw a side of her he'd never imagined, tender, almost maternal. It was a turning point, the beginning of change, as barriers crumbled and possibilities emerged. Days turned into weeks, and what started as a rainy night confession blossomed into tentative friendship. Victoria began showing up not as the boss, but as a person, bringing groceries on tough days, offering to babysit Lily during Alex's late shifts. At work, her demeanor softened. She implemented flexible hours for parents, drawing from Alex's quiet influence. He, in turn, found strength in her resilience, pushing for that promotion he'd long deserved, not out of entitlement but renewed confidence. Challenges persisted. Office gossip swirled about their growing closeness, Lily's adjustment to a new figure in their lives brought moments of jealousy, and Victoria's insecurities resurfaced during a high-stakes presentation where her scars felt exposed. But they navigated it together, Alex's affirming words becoming a mantra she clung to, reminding her that beauty lay in authenticity. One evening, as they walked in the park with Lily skipping ahead, Victoria turned to him, her hand finding his, and whispered thanks for seeing her truly. Alex's heart swelled, the grief for Emily evolving into gratitude for new beginnings, proving that healing wasn't linear but a mosaic of shared pains and joys. As their connection deepened, romance flickered like a candle in the wind, subtle touches, shared glances, a kiss under the stars that felt like coming home. Lily embraced Victoria, her child's intuition sensing the goodness beneath the surface, and Alex marveled at how life could rebuild from ruins. The struggles hadn't vanished. There were arguments over work-life balance, nights when old wounds reopened, but each hurdle strengthened their bond, turning individual battles into shared victories. Victoria's confidence grew, her leadership infused with empathy, inspiring her team to new heights. Alex found joy again, his laughter genuine as Lily's family expanded, the house filling with the aroma of shared meals and the sound of stories told in unison. It was a testament to second chances, how one vulnerable question on a stormy night could rewrite destinies, proving that true beauty emerges from the courage to ask and the compassion to answer. Before we reach the heartfelt conclusion, drop a comment below with your thoughts. What part of this story moved you the most, and how has kindness changed your life? If this tale of vulnerability, redemption, and unexpected love has tugged at your heartstrings, making you believe in the power of seeing beyond the surface, please like this video, share it with a friend who needs inspiration, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Your engagement means the world and keeps these narratives alive. In the end, as Alex and Victoria stood together on that same doorstep years later, watching Lily play in the sun, he leaned in and whispered the words that had started it all, affirming once more that yes, she was beautiful, in every way that mattered. Their journey, forged in rain and revelation, became a beacon of hope, showing that even in the darkest storms, a single act of kindness could illuminate the path to healing and love.